if you wanted to know the answer of which one I would choose after we've covered all the details here now, the 17. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. iPhone 17 versus iPhone 17 Pro 3 months later. So I've owned both of these for 3 months, nearing 4 months now, towards the end of this month. But I want to give you my overall take as an owner of both of them now, actually what they've felt like, where I stand now on their value proposition if you're still deciding between these two phones, or even if you're not, you just want to kind of know which one has been the better option because you might be planning to save and get it later. Let's go ahead and discuss all the details that you need to know. Let's start with the price point. Now, price to value ratio, meaning how much value are you getting for the price? I think in the short term, the iPhone 17 is going to be the much better deal. You get majority of the iPhone 17 Pro's specs, or mostly what you need on an iPhone today, including now a 120 hertz display for $300 less than the iPhone 17 Pro. So this is just a great deal. Best base iPhone ever in terms of the storage, not the storage, in terms of the size, in terms of 6.3, we do have ProMotion. It just kind of feels like a Pro iPhone at less money. So, well, less money than a Pro iPhone. It's not a cheap phone. Let's not get that twisted. You could get this thing over $1,000 depending on the storage tier you go with, but that's the highest storage tier. The lowest storage tiers on the Pros start at over $1,000. So for pure value for money, there is no denying that the 17 is just king right now. We have a dual camera setup, a beautiful sage green. You can also get this in a mist blue. We also do have camera control, action button over there, 6.3-inch display like the 16 Pro, and you also do get the same dynamic island. You get the same brightness. You get the A19 chip. You get 8 gigabytes of RAM. You also do get yourself the Apple Intelligence on board, visual intelligence, a part of that package, the rewrite tools. You do have an ultra wide camera, unlike the Air, bigger battery than the Air. This phone is just a rock star value, and it's been after the past 3 months. I picked this up and I'm like, that is one great deal of a phone that I picked up there. Now, we talk about price to value ratio here. I think in the long term, the Pro is still a great deal because the Pro does have 12 gigabytes of RAM. Hold on, let me put my passcode. The Pro does have 12 gigabytes of RAM, which means that this will be a great long-term choice. If you wanted to buy this phone for, say, keep it 5 to 6 years, this Pro is a great choice right here. Also, you do have yourself triple camera, 48 megapixel. Also going to make this a great long-term choice as those cameras stay consistent in a very long-term use scenario. You also do get that nice front-facing camera on both of them, that ultra-wide, so that's rather nice. The Pro also gives you a smoother unibody design with better thermals. You get yourself that action button as well as camera control, and generally it feels like you're getting your money's worth here, but I don't know that I love the aluminum in terms of the build materials versus previous Pros with titanium. They just looked more luxurious and premium before, whereas the iPhone 17, the base model, was a little bit more of a safer choice, so it kind of feels more normal than this one over here, which feels definitely different. I like the change. It looks newer, but I'm not so sure I love it over the previous titanium build. I like the design, I like the two-tone look, but I'm not sure I love the softer aluminum. We'll expand a little bit more on that in a minute here. Now, when it comes to build and design, when you pick this up, the iPhone 17, well, it just feels like an iPhone 16. It's got the same kind of like feel as that base iPhone. It does have always on display, which is nice. You also do have, the same flat edges as you're used to before. And I was just going to talk about how this phone is not as slippery. I just dropped it right now, but still, it is actually not as slippery as the iPhone 17 Pro. I will say that due to the flat edges, it just doesn't feel quite that slippery. It does have, similar buttons on both sides, but the flat edges and this feel kind of give you that same feel you're used to from previous iPhone 15 and 16 models. So the device doesn't really feel all that different. It just feels like more polished, more refined over previous 16 and 15. It kind of gives you those features that you were annoyed that those phones didn't give you, like the ProMotion display. I don't think anybody was really expecting this phone to have a 6.3-inch 16 Pro display, basically, that actually gets brighter. That was a nice addition. I wasn't even expecting that. I thought it was still going to be 6.1. Then if you go like this, you'll see I didn't expect to get an ultra wide camera either. So this is also adding to the value of this device right here. But in general, I gotta say the feel in hand is nice, but it kind of feels classic iPhone of the past few years, so it doesn't really stand out as feeling very different. And it looks on the front just about like any other iPhone, so it's a safe choice. Let's just put it that way. But the colors are pretty nice with the sage and the mist blue. The ultramarine might have been better on the previous 16 though for some people. Now, when it comes to the, I don't have Face ID, or I don't know if I have Face ID set up on this one because it just, or it locked me out or whatever. But moving on, the iPhone 17 Pro here definitely feels nicer in the hand. It's mostly due to the rounded aluminum unibody here. It definitely feels like when it hits the palm, it's not as sharp here. The best way I could describe it is smooth edge versus a little bit of a sharper edge over there. And that makes all the difference for people who felt like the flat edge iPhones just don't feel as comfortable. This is going to be a nice change. The con though is that this phone is soft on the aluminum and it feels like it slips a lot out of the hand. I need grip, so I always put a case on this phone. I actually went with the Tech Woven case, or Tech Woven case from Apple. I just put this one on here. It gives it tons of grip on this phone and still supports MagSafe. So for me, I kind of have to have a case on my 17 Pro just simply because it's just slippery. It just feels like it's gonna fall out of the hand at any moment. There's actually a video online where a dude was getting a signature from Tim Cook, and the iPhone 17 Pro Max or whatever fell out of his hand first try. I think that should show you what I'm talking about. It's pretty obvious that it's slippery. Now, also, I find that this phone's aluminum, I didn't drop this one yet on concrete, so I'm happy about that. But if you do drop this phone, they do tend to dent pretty easily in the corners. And so be careful with this device. This one will actually get some dents on it if you drop it. So it's a little bit soft, but I do like the thermal efficiency that comes to it. And I like on this silver, we do have the white texture here with what it looks like a camera plateau up here. So that's nice. I actually do like how they moved the LiDAR over here on this from previous Pros. It looks nice that they kind of like separated these sections from the cameras. So it's kind of like very obvious that this is a sensor and this is a flash. And over here, it's just camera housing. On the previous Pro, you'll find everything's in one section, so it's like a lot going on right there. I do like this look a little bit better in that respect. I'm not a big fan of this right here, though, and a few months later, the antenna lines are very obvious on this product right here, so, I mean, you can't really hide them too much, but generally, it looks pretty nice. I think design-wise, I like the look of the 17 Pro more, but the 17 is a safer choice and probably less likely to drop in the hand. That is something I noticed. Another thing is 3 months later, when I pick both of these up, I've been finding that the lightweight feel of the 17 is more comfortable for practical daily use. It's about 30 grams lighter. You feel the weight immediately with the 17 Pro, and I actually don't love that more than the 16 Pro, which is actually lighter than the 17 Pro. The titanium on here was lighter. So let me take this out of this super thin case I have on here. This phone was kind of like an in-between these two. Like, it wasn't as heavy as the 17 Pro, but it's not as light as the 17, but has the same kind of edges as the 17 right here. The 16 Pro was a nice sweet spot to me. We're not talking 16 Pro in this video, but the 17 Pro, I'm trying to make a point here about the weight. It's not heavy or nothing like a Max phone, but it is heftier than the previous version. So it became less comfortable and it's slipperier. So overall, I think that this phone practically doesn't even feel better than the previous one. But the soft aluminum feels like a change. If you were looking for something that feels different, they achieved that goal. It definitely feels different because, you know, a lot of people have been saying iPhones are the same. Yes, they have achieved a different feel here, that's for sure. But whether it's more comfortable is a topic for another day. The iPhone 17 practically is the better pick, though. It feels nicer in the hand in terms of like daily holding. It's lighter and grippier without a case, especially if you're going caseless on these phones. I'd pick the 17 here. The 17 Pro has better anti-reflective properties on display. We'll expand more on display in a minute here. So both of these do have nearly the same exact display overall, though. They're both hitting about 3,000 nits of brightness. They both have similarly thin bezels, and they both do have anti-reflective properties. I do find it to be a little bit better on the iPhone 17 Pro, however, and the calibration is about the same. So one of the very, very nice things about 17 this year, base model, is the display is virtually imperceptibly different. Like you can't even perceive a difference when looking at these two. That is a great thing and a great value for those of you who want to buy the 17, saving you money and also giving you the same exact display experience. I love that for the buyer of the iPhone 17 because they don't got to spend as much and they're still going to get the same sharpness. Even when you get up close, the sharpness of the text, the actual dynamic island, same size, bezels nearly same exact size. It's amazing that you get that display now on the smaller phone. You also have the same liquid glass, so everything's going to look just as smooth as one another. And if you're reading video or reading videos, if you're watching videos, reading news articles, whatever, on either phone, you're going to have a good time. We'll just go to two separate news apps here just to see what's popping. And we'll go over here to, let's go ahead and find some tech stuff. We'll go over here to technology, whatever. If you're reading text on either of these, it's going to be a fantastic experience. It just really is. It's going to be very sharp on either. And honestly, when you're holding this front on, it's imperceivable. The difference is nil to none. So there's just no other reason to buy a 17 Pro for display. If you just care about a nice display, just save your money and get the 17. It's essentially the same exact thing. Same goes with the software. Let's just carry over into that area. A few months later, I love that the software feels, identical on both. This is something Apple's done well for a very long time. You do still have those extra camera features you're going to find on the 17 Pro within the software, but other than that, we're tinting the same icons, we're doing the same customizations, and generally your 17 can perform almost all same tasks as the iPhone 17 Pro sans the camera inclusion upgrades, which are, you have to have them. If you have a third camera, you're going to have more, but also you have log and you have Pro, Res, RAW, and things like that in camera. So it does have a few more features here, but it's other than that, it's the exact same experience. Now, in terms of long-term use, I do think the 17 Pro for the software will perform better due to its 12 gigs of RAM as updates go on down the line. But generally, the experience right now is virtually the same exact thing. I don't care what you're doing on this phone day to day. And that is to say, you're getting the same update support as well. So you're getting very, very frequent software updates on both, running 26.2 right now. iOS in general, though, I think needs a little bit of refinement because it hasn't been up to its super smooth and polished feel that it used to have. I feel like this year they kind of like put out the whole new paint job, but now we need a little bit more consistency. Sometimes it gets a little bit laggy, sometimes with some weird transitions. Well, not really weird, but they kind of just don't feel as fast all the time as they could. I've been having some strange visual effects that happen where the flying effects sometimes won't be as fast as I like. So I'd like to see those upgraded down the line. Now, in performance wise, the iPhone 17 Pro is clearly the winner on paper. In reality, though, the iPhone 17 Pro actually doesn't feel too much different day to day. I only think it's really going to perform better in the long haul. And you've seen that calculator animation was a little bit slow. That's what I'm talking about. The iPhone 17 Pro, when you hit year 5, 6, it's going to pull ahead with that 12 gigs of RAM. It might even pull ahead at year 4. It depends on what Apple puts on the future of the iPhone, but it's going to do very well. Now, the iPhone 17 right now also performs fantastic. And honestly, if I was to hold these blindfolded, well, I can't really play with them blindfolded, but if I was to use these with a case, didn't know which one was which, and I just started opening applications, I wouldn't know which one was which. Like, that's how close and the exact same they feel in performance even. One area where the iPhone 17 you will notice is different, though, is the heat. It does get warmer when gaming, and it does get warmer when pushing the phone hard, downloading all your apps when you first set it up, and also when really, pushing the phone a little bit. It gets warmer for sure than the 17 Pro. The 17 Pro can handle more heat. It has better thermals. It has vapor chamber. It also does have itself the unibody design to disperse that heat. So this phone is much better for the power user, but you got to really be a power user. Let's not just say you use a bunch of apps and you're a power user. I mean, you're pushing this thing. You're video editing, you're gaming, you're really, you're going hard on the phone. That's a true benefit to the 17 Pro. Other than that, daily performance is not noticeable. Now, 3 months later, when it comes to the battery life between both of these, the 17 Pro has shined for me as the stronger performer. The battery life is better because the battery is bigger. It's substantially bigger than that of the previous, or the 17. So if you are looking for better battery life, it's no doubt about it going to be the 17 Pro here. Just pick the 17 Pro if you want the better battery life. It is the winner. Let's go over to low battery power mode. One thing to note with both of these, if you do put on low power mode, it turns these phones back into 60 hertz panels, so they kind of feel a little bit slower. So I don't like to use low power mode, but if you do, you'll get even a more extended battery. But in reality, the 17 is standard good battery for iPhone, gets through the day. The 17 Pro can impressively get through about a day and a quarter. So what I mean is all day and then like probably the morning of the next day. Whereas the Max can make it like to the evening of the second day. This phone all day, I'm charging at night though with the 17, but it's all day. So both of them are good, but 17 Pro all day. If you want the better battery life, it is the bigger one, especially on the eSIM only variant. Even the nano SIM version though is still better than the 17. So if you're in an area where you get nano SIM version of 17 Pro, it's still better than the 17. So that can make up the difference why you're paying a bit more if that really, really matters to you. Again, neither are going to let you down for the day-to-day, but here's the thing. As the phones age, in the long term, having a smaller capacity means that your battery is going to start to get crappy first on the 17. As it ages chemically, it's going to be the one getting worse battery, as this has a larger capacity, more cells, so it should sustain its battery a little bit longer than the iPhone 17. So you're paying for long term here. You're paying for medium term, I think, on the 17 when it comes to those sizes. Some other little things about these phones. The 17 Pro actually has better transfer speeds. It's not really little if you're a pro though. If you are not even a pro, if you're just transferring stuff a lot, you're just transferring things through USB-C. Type 3.2 versus Type 2.0. I mean, we're talking pretty substantial transfer speed differences. Also display ports on both of them, however a little bit more fast and reliable on the 17 Pro. You'll also see they have more holes right there on the bottom, so a little bit nicer there on the 17 Pro. But overall, we do find ourselves just faster overall transfer speeds. They both don't have the fastest charging, although I found the 17 Pro to charge a little bit faster than the 17. It's not anything substantial. It doesn't blow me away like a OnePlus phone or any of those other phones with super fast charging, but it does a pretty good job. Let's talk about the cameras. We'll talk about some other things and then we'll get up out of here. So camera wise, I'm going with the 17 Pro, of course. It's a pretty obvious choice, but it's not just because it has more cameras. It's because the zoom is truly useful. We can go up to 40x zoom on here, which is very, very useful in certain scenarios, and it stays pretty usable in most respects. It looks a little noisy right here because I'm zooming close in on an object, but outdoors 40 times is more than acceptable on this phone. I don't really think you have to get this based on the log recording and ProRes RAW, but the iPhone 17 over here, the 10X just feels very dated. They do have a nice 2 times, but 10X, I mean, come on, we've had 10X since like iPhone 10. So this just feels, yeah, it's standard, but it's nothing special, like 10x zoom. So that's the only reason I'd say go with the iPhone 17 Pro. If you're a pro, clearly the Pro is better. Duh, it has all those pro features. But for regular users, it's all about the zoom. That's the one I'm going to pick over there. Also, we do have ourselves, if we go over here, the same front-facing cameras. I really love these center stage. I'm going to keep talking about it in my reviews because until other competitors come out with similarly ultra-wide cameras, which I've always been requesting on iPhones, I'm going to keep raving about those because they are excellent. But yeah, serious pros for log recording, ProRes RAW, and also zoom. If you need that zoom, the 17 Pro, it's just a clear, easy winner in this department. 17 Pro, a lot of people don't talk about, but it actually has 2 better areas I found. One is the audio performance, which is going to be like when you hear audio out the microphone or out of the speakers from like music and stuff like that. It's a little bit richer, a little bit better sounding at the highest volumes. And 2, because of that, you do have better speakerphone calls when you do make phone calls to people. So that's a big deal, I think, for the iPhone 17 Pro. If you're using the device as a phone a lot, if you're not using it as a phone a lot, doesn't really matter, or you use headphones a lot, doesn't really matter. Both of them do have the same Bluetooth 6.0. They both do have Wi-Fi 7 Although the 17 doesn't have 6E, so there's more network support on the iPhone 17 Pro, but both do have Qualcomm modems for, with network performance, so they do good in that department. iPhones are really solid these days when it comes to the network performance. They're still, to me, not as good as my Samsung phones. I found those to still have a little bit better reception, but they're right there. They're very, very close now, and before they were kind of like not even close. So they're actually pretty strong here. I'm glad these don't have the C1 right now. I think those are going to be better for efficiency, but I'm not so sure about network reliability. I'm happy these have Qualcomm on board at this current time. So let me just talk about a few things before we get up out of here that I don't like about both of them, because I don't want to sit over here acting like I'm just glazing both phones the entire time. Let's talk about what I don't like and what I think needs to be improved. Well, on the future base iPhone, I'm tired of the flat edges. Like, it's been around since the iPhone 12. Let's go ahead and smooth out the edges a bit on here. For the base model iPhone, the dynamic island. I don't want any iPhone to have dynamic island anymore. I know not everybody really cares, but personally, I want to see an all-screen display, an all-screen iPhone. That is like the dream over here. Dynamic island, just like, let's get an all under display camera, all screen phone. Like, that would be one of the most amazing looking phones ever, I think, on these iPhones right here. And then you'll have full bar for, you could probably put some other notifications up there if they made a software update, if it was a full length, no dynamic island. Also, I think this phone is very nice, but it's a little bit of a safe offering, and it kind of feels boring after you kind of get over the fact that you just bought a new phone. It still feels like a previous iPhone, but what's not boring is the 120 hertz. Now, what I don't like about the 17 Pro is that the phone just feels less comfortable and heavier and not as premium as the previous 16 Pro. It feels like a step back in terms of the edges. Like, look at the edges on the 16 Pro right there. That is gorgeous titanium right there on this device. And the way it feels in the hand, it's something you can't see on camera, but the feel in hand, it feels like you're holding a luxury product on the 16 Pro. On here, it feels like you're using a regular aluminum base iPhone almost in terms of the textures of it. But I do like the look, the change. It's just not as grippy, and it's softer aluminum. That's what I don't like about the iPhone 17 Pro after these 3 months. So in conclusion, if you wanted to know the answer of which one I would choose after we've covered all the details here now, the 17 Pro is the one I'm going to pick. And it's not just because obviously it's the better phone here and I'm like out of touch with the fact that this is a great value. That's not the point. I'm looking at the long term. Longevity. And when you look at a person who's going to buy a phone and keep it for 5 or 6 years down the line, you have 12 gigs of RAM. That's 4 more. That's going to be a big deal when Apple starts updating the software and then your older iPhone doesn't run it as well, like 3-4 years down the line. That's going to be a big deal, as most phones are already transitioning into 16 gigabytes of RAM. So 12 should be the minimum right now, and this one has it right here. 3 cameras is always going to be better than 2. This also has a higher resale value because when you sell these phones, people look for the pros. They just stand out to get more money back. When you go to sell them, they cost more, so they're going to get more back as well. And the Pro chip is more efficient and the thermals are better. So if the thermals are better, software updates down the line might not make this phone as hot. So I think a long-term experience, you have a lot more headroom with the 17 Pro. And while on paper, the 17 feels like a great decision, it is, I think, for more of a medium term, 3 years or so. I think this is probably the better choice. If you're just going to be on the phone for 2 to 3 years and you're going to upgrade again, save your money and get the 17. But for those long-term users, 17 Pro is the better value here. But this is still a tremendous phone at the $799 and the best value base iPhone of all time, I feel like. So that's my take on these two after 3 months of ownership. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And which one you plan to go with now that you've seen this video, or if you already did go with one or you don't plan on it at all. Let's just talk about it. Let's talk about it down below in the comments. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you know anybody who needs help with this particular question, go ahead and share this video. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.